We have been saying, at the end of readings, people seem to say thank you. I guess it means c'est tout, or that's all, folks. So how do we end it? But I do want to start out by saying thank you. Thank you to such colleagues as I've just heard reading, such students as you heard earlier, such other students who are here, other colleagues. You know who you are. They may not be up here, but I see them there. I thought naturally, since I was asked to read, I learned about all this relatively late in its development. And I found that a program had already been printed that listed me as a reader. And I thought, I can't read. What can I read? I have thousands of poems. But what poem can I read, or what 3 poems can I read that sum up 40 years of work, or have anything to do with it? So I thought, well, I'll just read the poem I wrote that morning, if I write one that morning. But that didn't seem right. Then I thought I'd make a poem, take one line from every year, just and read that. But Anne Lauterbach has done that already, but we'll see. So what was for me to do? So I thought I'd just talk to you and say how much I thank you. So many people I want to thank. My wife Charlotte, who organized so much of this and made it happen with the incredible, subtle, beautiful, intense, manipulative energies that wives know all about, bringing it out beyond me into the whole world. Her kindness and thoughtfulness, the care to make this happen has touched me, made it wonderful for me. John Pruitt, who helped so much her and this whole situation, Amy McAvoy, Ginger Shore, Mikhail Horowitz, who should be up here reading, but he signed the contract a day too late, Emily Darrow, Colleen Murphy. But these colleagues, these students, so-called, my teachers that they have been and continue to be. And of course, Leon Rodstein, not just for his warm support of this event, but for contriving against all odds to make Bard College still be here. And 20 years ago, it did not seem likely. 30 years ago, it seemed definitely unlikely. In 1970, I bet a member of the faculty, he's never paid me, I bet him $5 that Bard would never end, and he bet me 5 that it would be gone within 3 or 4 years. He's never paid me, but what do you expect of physicists? I mentioned no names, but it's still here. I wrote down here that it's still alive and flourishing, so I could wake up all these 10,000 green mornings. And I liked that phrase, so I wrote 10,000 green mornings, then I did the arithmetic. And I realized that, well, I don't speak Chinese either, so I can say that Chinese expresses large number, as the Greeks did, by 10,000, myriad. So the 10,000 things is everything, 10,000 mornings is every morning. Actually, it's about 14,542 mornings, but not counting sabbaticals. Wake up every morning and still want to be here because this place has become, as you see, exciting, not just in poetry, but it's so evidently wonderfully exciting, multilingually exciting. But among all these people who made the day, and who are making the day happen now, my students, my colleagues, my peers, my betters, my dear friends, there is one person notably absent, and I learned this from the calendar. Without that person, we would not be here, at least not in the singular way that here is for us now. On this day, November 10th, 110 years ago, there died in Marseille, having just gotten there, a tortured amputee, a dying pre-postmodernist visionary for whom poetry was always the youngest art, an art he had exhausted by the teenager he had been. He was named Arthur Rimbaud, and it's his fault we are here. He did it. After performing the incredible act of transforming poetics from personal plaint and complaint and whining and desiring to transpersonal revelation, mapping even the classics beyond all their plaster and dust onto a vivid and recurrent world, even after leaving poetry forever, as he thought he was doing, in his 20th year and sailing off to Arabia and Africa, Ethiopia, to serve the silent, evocative muse of caffeine. I also worship her. In her homeland, coffee, 20 years of importing guns to King Menelik and exporting Harar coffee to France, and writing a few letters and taking a few pictures on a cranky-danky camera he had gotten, but no more poems. Rimbaud left us with this young thing to do, this world of poetry that still has to get said, that we have to say, that we are kept somehow young to say, that we have to be young to keep saying. A few days ago, a woman from the Poughkeepsie Journal called me and interviewed me on the phone about how I felt about all this. And I made up something. And then at one point she said, when you moved, she wasn't nervous at all, very formidable and clear and interesting person, but then there was a different tinge entered her voice. And she said, when you moved up there 40 years ago, did you think you were going to stay so long? And I said, no, I didn't. And I answered that question, but then I realized that that woman was really afraid. And I realized that I asked her and found out that she had just moved up from New York a year and a half ago. And so might I be, she thought. Well, I gotta tell you, if you ever happen to stay here 40 years more, it doesn't take very long for 40 years to pass at a place like this. I still dream in New York City. I mean, I never dream about Annandale. I still dream where I grew up, Brooklyn and Manhattan. The streets I walk on and dream, or stumble down and dream, are still those in the West Village. Sometimes the East Village, but even that's a little nouveau for me. So, in a way, this kind of Chernanog place of bar that is about being young and somehow keeps people young, or at least keeps them acting as if, or thinking that they are, and therefore keeps some sort of transcendental hypermetabolism creating the possibility of possibility. And without the possibility of possibility, nothing is possible. Rimbaud did a lot to make this happen. So if we want to be his poet, his teenagers, Wallace Stevens, that much more somber character, speaks of the virile poet, the virile youth as the figure of the poet. If we want to be that teenage boy, that soon-to-be corrupt, decadent African explorer, colonial coffee exporter, if we want to be that teenager, we have to learn, as he taught us, to articulate the new universe piece by piece. If we want to be fancy about it, articulate a universe, or just spill our private dreams into the public morning. Rimbaud teases us till we know that poetry really has to be love poetry after all. Maybe poetry will be the sex of the new millennium. Not necessarily the old erotic, the zootique, not at all probably the tender, romantic, old-fashioned sexo-sentimentality of, I love you, please give yourself over to my designs, that yearning love we can still sometimes enjoy in opera, whose very flamboyancy is the edge of irony that lets us shamelessly enjoy it. Or in old poetry like Thomas Wyatt and his Dear Heart, how like you this. And not the exalted smuttiness of Donne or our friend Verlaine, or the veiled exaltations of Dante, but something more radical, yet more devious the way any simple thing is more searching. Rimbaud proposed a poetry that would do the most generous thing literature ever tried to lay beside the other. That is, to lie beside the other. The other, the one that Whitman hailed, you, whoever you are, who are holding me now in your hand. That literature was no longer in the medieval aesthetic trinity of purposes supposed to instruct, reprove, or persuade. Instead, the poem was to live with, to dwell with us. A Christian or an ex-Christian might have said, to dwell amongst us. The poem is dwelling. Rimbaud's generous impulse was to lay out the sequence, orderly, as all real things are, one leading to another, hand to hand, in one ear and out the mouth, the events of the mind itself, themselves. So the modern poet, whether pre-modern, modernist, or post-modernist, has this grand but intimate calling to speak the cosmos of the mind, the inscape pronounced out loud, so that you, whoever you are, can lie down and wake up beside the ideas, the images, the upwellings, the drowsy remembrances, the peremptory demands. Can fit yourself, nestle into the ongoing sequences of language, and have your own mind roused to fill the spaces. With Rimbaud, the poem at long last became not something to listen to, but something to do. A poem is a liturgy for readers, a script to a wild play you put on in the barn, in the bedroom, in the congress, a partner to their thinking and feeling, shaping them both in real time like what we used to call music, to make the synapses between what you hear and what you think, what thinks itself in you now. Thinking is the feeling that passes, the feeling that thinks. Down by the river, someone is sitting by the tracks, by an abandoned station. What does it matter how old he is? He's watching the freight train pass. The train runs fast alongside the river. There are mountains over there. He can't see the mountains now. The train is passing. He sees the freight cars pass. He didn't come and sit on this old bench to watch the train. He was sitting there in the shade of the wall to take the cool of the shade, and the train came by. There are times and seasons, he thinks, like the Bible says. And then the train is there. He watches it. It goes by so fast he can just see what's in front of him right now. Nothing else but right now. You know how it is. Cattle cars full of pigs. He smells the pigs. He imagines he can hear them squealing inside. He can't hear them. He can only hear the squeal of the wheels on the rails. And now there are cattle cars with cattle in them. He sees big, heavy, shadowy bodies shifting around, crammed in as they are, sure-footed as the car slams back and forth along the switches by the old station. Pigs and cows, and now what? Boring flat cars, 10 of them in a row, full of what look like sewer pipes heading west, black, plasticky sewer pipes, or oil lines, or what are they? They're gone. And now there's a yellow freight car with a sleeping cat on it. He loves that. Chessie the cat. And a red one from Lehigh. And another yellow. And a flat car with tractors on it. Brand new. Heading to the prairie, he thinks. What does he know where they're going? One thing after another. By now he's forgotten to count the cars he's watching. It bothers him he doesn't know how many there are. He feels he should be aware of being aware of things. He watches what they mean. What they mean is passing by and being red and yellow. What they mean is passing by and being beautiful. A man is watching a freight train pass. He may be young, he may be old. What difference does it make to the river? Weeds along the track that rose from the seeds that fell from the trains. Wheat and oil and milk and long machines. Boxcars full of what the man can't see. And then, after all those dark red mystery cars, a flat car, empty. He sees the river again, and the mountains beyond it, clear for a moment, then gone, as if the train were carrying even the mountain away. What reveals it also takes it away. Thank you. I mean, really thank you.